This orange cat was looking into the drain constantly and was not moving. And when a taxi driver opened it, he was shocked to discover. Stay tuned, as this story is surely going to restore your confidence in humanity. It had been a long, exhausting day for the taxi driver. His back ached from hours behind the wheel, his fingers numb from gripping the steering wheel too tightly. The city had been relentless. Traffic jams, impatient passengers, the never-ending honking that seemed to drill into his skull. Finally, he pulled over near a taxi stand, hoping for a brief rest before his next ride. That's when he saw her. An orange cat, small and fragile, perched near the curb. But something about her wasn't right. She wasn't wandering, she wasn't begging for food, and she wasn't darting through traffic like most stray cats. She was perfectly still, her golden eyes locked onto the narrow metal grates of a storm drain. Her entire body was tense, her tail flicking only slightly, as if she were bracing herself for something. At first, he assumed she had spotted something, maybe a discarded piece of food, or worse, a rat scurrying below. It was nothing out of the ordinary. He shook his head and leaned back in his seat, waiting for the next booking to come through. Minutes later, his radio crackled. Another passenger, another trip. With a sigh, he started the engine and pulled away, the cat disappearing in his rearview mirror. But the image of her didn't leave him. An hour passed, then another. And when he returned, there she was. Still staring, still motionless, still lost in whatever mystery lay beneath the drain. A chill ran down his spine. No animal, especially not a stray, would sit in the same spot for hours like that, not without a reason. He tried to ignore it, but his curiosity gnawed at him. There was something more here, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Finally, he stepped out of his taxi and walked toward her. "Hey, little one, what are you looking at?" She didn't flinch, didn't move, didn't even acknowledge his presence. It was as if she was in a trance. Kneeling, he peered into the drain, expecting to see nothing but darkness and rainwater. Instead, what he saw made his breath catch in his throat. There, barely visible in the shadows, was a tiny, trembling kitten. A desperate, soaking wet kitten trapped beneath the streets. His heart pounded. The orange cat wasn't just staring, she had been waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone to help. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. She wasn't searching for food. She wasn't lost. She was a mother. And she was refusing to leave without her baby. The taxi driver's exhaustion vanished. His hands trembled as he tried to lift the metal grate, but it was heavy, rusted shut from years of neglect. He cursed under his breath. He couldn't just leave them like this. He needed help. He looked around frantically, searching for someone, anyone, who could assist. To his relief, one of his friends came to help. Together, they worked, grunting and straining as they pried the metal grate open inch by inch. The orange cat didn't move. She simply watched, her body still coiled with tension, as if she understood the urgency of what was happening. And then, finally, the grate gave way. The taxi driver reached in carefully, his fingers brushing against the damp fur of the tiny kitten. It let out a weak, pitiful meow, so faint it barely reached his ears. His heart ached at the sound. Gently, he lifted the kitten out, cradling its fragile body in his hands. It was shivering, its little chest rising and falling rapidly. The moment the orange cat saw her baby safe, she moved for the first time in hours. She sniffed the kitten urgently, nuzzling it with soft, reassuring licks. But then, another sound, a faint cry. The taxi driver's breath caught. He looked back into the drain. There was another one, and another, and another. 3 more tiny kittens, barely clinging to life, hidden within the dark tunnel of the drain. Their mother hadn't been staring at just one. She had been guarding all of them. The driver wasted no time. With the help of the others, he carefully pulled out each fragile kitten, placing them on the ground beside their mother. She immediately went to them, checking each one, her body finally relaxing as she curled around her babies protectively. but they were weak, cold, and in desperate need of care. The taxi driver knew he couldn't leave them there. Gently, he picked up the mother cat and her kittens, wrapping them in a soft cloth he had in his car. He opened the door to his taxi and placed them inside, letting the mother settle in as she nuzzled her babies. He gave her time, watching as she licked each one, encouraging them to feed. Her confidence slowly returning. She had fought for them. She had waited. And now, she was safe. The taxi driver started his engine, but he wasn't taking another passenger this time. He drove straight to a nearby animal rescue center. The staff rushed to examine the mother and kittens, checking for any signs of illness or malnutrition. The driver stayed, watching anxiously as the vets gently handled the tiny creatures. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he got the news. They were going to be okay. The mother and her babies were admitted to the rescue center, given food, warmth, and a safe place to stay. Over the next few weeks, they grew stronger, and eventually they found a home together. As the taxi driver left the center that evening, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Because in a world that often felt too busy, too chaotic, too indifferent, tonight humanity had won. And it all started with an orange cat who refused to give up. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more real, heartwarming stories. Because sometimes the smallest acts of kindness make the biggest difference.